Welcome to Dwarven Subtlety, a podcast about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition gaming. We focus on tips for both the players and the DMs to help improve your gameplay. This week we're going to be going over the way that a Dungeon Master can cheat, and a few very different styles of being a Dungeon Master. I will go over some tools that I have found that are very useful for aspiring Dungeon Masters. But first, a story. I know last week I promised to go over the Dread Gazebo. It's going to get pushed another week. I found a great story that I've actually used in my current game because it was just so perfect, and I wanted to share this. I actually used this last week, so here we go. So this is a natural 20 with nothing to see. One time, a guy in our party rolled a nat 20 on a perception check, but there was nothing around he didn't already see. So the DM said, "You're not quite sure, but for a few seconds, it seems like you're standing on a giant's table, surrounded by 5 giants. Your party seems to look stiff and fake, and large papers and dice are strewn around you. Then, everything goes back to normal." I love this story. It's hilarious. Basically, it's your character's Minnie is realizing where he is in our universe. I don't know why. The story just cracks me up so much. Now, going on to the main topic here, of course, Dungeon Master cheating. We're going to look at some different styles of DMing. Now, cheating is really a subjective thing. I say cheating, but I don't exactly mean cheating like I'm going to ruin your day. I'm usually cheating for really good reasons. And I've broken this down in alignment sets. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my my sheet here real quick so y'all can see this. This is just really fun here. So we have lawful good. I roll my dice in the open, so all may see that I'm being truthful. I also will give buffs when needed to help players overcome my dice. Now, this actually isn't quite true. This is more true neutral. I'm going to go ahead and break this up right here. There we go. There we go. True good, or just neutral good. So these are kind of two different styles of neutral good here. So yeah, being lawful good, there's law and order, you know what's happening, everyone can see it, there's no fudging. This is a tricky style of DMing. I'm a fan of it, though. We expect it of our players, and for a DM, it can be useful. And then giving out the buffs, that's, a DM should know when a tricky roll, based on the situation, there's the rules, and then there's the DM's law. That's a very important thing to sort of differentiate. The rules of the game are well written. Everyone who has a player's handbook, DMG, whatever, they can look at the rules and tell you exactly what they are. But the Dungeon Master has basically, so there's the pantheon of gods, and then there's the Dungeon Master. They're the ones who create the universe. So if a DM is going to say, no, this is how this works, that's how it works. There's no questioning at that point. And I love that about Dungeons & Dragons. It's one of the best parts about it. So if you want to give your characters a buff, absolutely do. I actually do it a lot with when I'm DMing. I'll give what I call advantage tokens. I do them for exceptional role-playing, giving style, helping other players, things like that, And what it is, it's actually something I got from D&D Next, where that was a regular thing. At the beginning of every day, you had to get a token of advantage or disadvantage, and you could either use it for yourself or you could give it to someone else. It was a very useful item to have. And I loved D&D Next. I thought it was a great style, and I was really happy with it. So I've actually got the entire series from December on of D&D Next in my Google Drive. If anyone wants a copy, I'm happy to share. Now, the next neutral good on here is, I roll my dice in secret, but I'm trustworthy to not fudge the numbers. This is actually, I don't like this style. If you're going to roll in secret, you should be fudging your numbers, which is chaotic neutral. I roll my dice in secret and will fudge the numbers if it helps the story of my players. This, I think, is one of the most popular DM styles. I see it a lot in shows like Critical Role. I see it in Dimension 20 with from Dropout TV. Whenever you're watching players and you see a DM rolling dice, there's a chance they're fudging the numbers. I actually get the feeling that Brennan from Dimension 20 is not fudging his numbers, but he has he has such a good way of making his dice into the story that I'm really a big fan of. They have the benefit of they're all improv actors, so making something out of absolutely nothing is what they literally do for a living. So they got that benefit going. Lawful neutral, the dice are God. If the dice rolls a number, that is the number. This is me. This is how I DM. I sort of take what I was talking about with Brennan exactly correct there. I might roll the dice behind the screen. I might roll them in front of people. It depends on the situation. If I'm doing a challenge against someone, we're rolling our dice against each other. But if I'm doing checks in the background, I'm going to go ahead and let my dice roll. I'm not going to tell you what the roll is for, of course. There's no reason for you to wonder why I just pulled out 66. There's no reason for that whatsoever. True neutral, all decisions are decided by the dice. The dice will keep us honest. True neutral is very good. I'm a fan of true neutral. It's very similar to lawful neutral, but there's a little bit of fudging there. And then chaotic neutral, sometimes I'm going to roll. Other times I'm going to pretend to roll. The story is king. And this is sort of a conglomeration of what I've been saying before. All of these styles really can lead to each other. It just depends on how you use those styles. Generally, I am true neutral. There are times where I won't roll a dice for a situation. I'm just going to tell you if it happened or not. And a lot of that's going to depend on my players. I know I like to say this podcast is absolutely for players. It 100% is. I'm going to talk about a lot of tricks for DMs, but knowing how your DM thinks is a great use for players as well. So for this, if you can give me a compelling reason why you think that you're going to get past that dragon, let me know. I want to know how you're going to get past that dragon. Now, it says on here which style is best. There is no best style. The best style is going to be determined by the DM and what they're going to do. A lot of that is going to be flexible, too. I've had situations where I need to roll everything behind the screen. I've had situations where I need to roll everything out in the open because I know my players need to see these dice. I have experiences where I don't roll the dice at all. It should be flexible. As a DM, you need to be flexible to the situation. Now, next up, I kind of want to go over some different, different tools that DMs have at their disposal. Of course, you have your dice. You have your books. You should read at least some of the books. I highly recommend knowing a good chunk of the player's handbook. As a DM, you don't need to know the classes or the races almost at all. Your players will know that. What your focus needs to be on is the effects that will happen in combat, in role-playing situations, and things like that. It doesn't matter if you know how far a cart can travel in a day. Your players should know that. It's good to know that, but you don't need to know that. It's good to know that fighters get a lot more ability score improvements than anyone else. But your fighters should know that. That's up to them to do. That's actually one of the driving forces of why I play a fighter. A human fighter, a variant human fighter, is an amazing thing. They are just ridiculously overloaded with feats and ASI. They're beautiful. If you're playing a variant human, warrior, you're in a good place. Next up on there, though, I want to go over some different tools. So you have the dice, you have your books. Module books are a great resource out there. I was going to pull this up here, but I'm going to pull this up first. D&D 5e modules. So there are a lot of them. So I always tell people, I'm actually just going to pull this page open here. This is a very good page here. So this is the list of published D&D 5e adventures. It's an article from RPG Stack Exchange. I just did a Google search for D&D 5e modules. This came up. So this is a very good resource. And I always tell all DMs, if you haven't DM'd before, or if you're working with players who've never played before, Lost Mines of Phandelver is amazing. It is by far one of the best modules that Wizards of the Coast has put out for 5th edition so far. It's of course not the best. There are better ones. We're looking at you, Barovia. But Lost Mine of Phandelver, it is great. It introduces some character hooks. It shows, the side of the road waylay, and then if the players go off and search, they can find more information. You've got the village, you've got the dragon fight, you've got the hobgoblins in their keep. You've got so much. You have it's amazing. And this was the first adventure that, of course, I ran because that was the first adventure. I started playing 5th edition basically the day it came out. I ordered the red box, the starter set here. I ordered the player's handbook, DMG, monster manual. I ordered it all in advance before it was ever released. It came out, and my team went immediately from being D&D 5th edition testers or D&D Next testers straight to being 5th edition players. We opened up the books. Everyone in my group had got a copy of the player's handbook. A few of them had the DMG, a few of them had the monster manual. But I was the only one who grabbed the starter set. I don't know why. I think everyone who plays D&D should get a starter set. It's great. Actually, I kind of want to show you this too. D&D 5e starter set. We're going to pull this up here. Perfect. Wizards.com has an article about it. So it has the adventure book with everything a Dungeon Master needs to get started. And it has a 32-page rule book for playing characters level 1 through 5. This is huge. I wish they sold just this. I know I can get a PDF of it and I can print it myself, which I do. I do that quite a bit. But I would love to have one of these where I could buy one of these for $3 or $4 or $5, whatever, just to get the bound copy of it. And I've actually bought 4 or 5 starter sets, and I have 4 or 5 of these. I'd like to get more, I'm that kind of guy. And I usually buy them for friends and family who are interested in getting into D&D. It's a great starter set. It also comes with some pre-generated characters with character sheets. I've never used these characters. I always encourage all of my players to make new ones, but if they want to, they're absolutely welcome to. And then it comes with 6 dice. You'll notice it's not 7. The dice it's missing is the percentile dice, the 10-sided dice with the 10, 20, 30, 40. Which is fine. You'd never use that dice, pretty much. I usually actually use it as an extra D10 in most cases, it's a useful item, though. The place I've found that you can buy these regularly is going to be Target. If you have a Target in your area, they've got it. I went there doing Christmas shopping. I wanted to buy board games. They had 6 of these just sitting on the shelf for $20 each. I was tempted to buy another one. I'm that bad. I've gotten bad places there. But yeah, it's won a bunch of awards for production value, family game. It's a really great system there, and I highly recommend it to anyone who doesn't already have a copy. Even if you have been playing for 5th edition since its release, but you didn't get this, get a copy. Seriously, it is an amazing thing. I think it actually even comes with a little DM screen, which is useful. You want to have that because the DM screen, which I was pulling up over here, this one's a custom one, but let me do a search here. D&D 5e starter set DM screen. See if I think there is one. Yeah. I think this is it, actually. Let me move this down a little bit so you guys can see this a bit better. So it has useful things on here. Character advancement, leveling, ability scores, and modifiers. Sort of, if you have a 10, you're a 0, 11, you're a 0, 12, 13, 1, 14, 15, 2, etc. Up the line. And then it goes over the different skills that are associated with each of the things. That's useful to have just so you sort of know the general things of what you're looking for. I think one of the most confusing things on here is the difference between athletics and acrobatics. I'm very specific. If it takes dexterity to do what you're doing, it's acrobatics. If it takes strength to do what you're doing, I'm like that, But I'll switch. If it's climbing a tree, I've climbed a tree using braw strength before. I didn't use any dex. I grabbed the tree and I pulled myself up. There was no dexterity in it except for my hands not letting go. But anyway, there's a lot of useful thing in here. And this area right here is actually the most important. You can't see it. I can't see it either, but I know exactly what this is. These are the effects that happen to you Actually, that might be over here. I don't know. I'm confused now which one is which. But anyway, it's the effects that happen to your players. Being dazed, being stunned, being prone, etc. It tells you what's happening with that. And that is a very useful thing to have. This is the part that I was saying that you should memorize. If you don't memorize it, get a DM screen. It will tell you. The hard part is remembering to look. But there's also a lot of other information here, like how much it costs to spend a night somewhere, how far you can travel, etc. Stuff like that. Basically, it's chapter 6 and 7 of the Player's Handbook, which is, like I always say, it's a super useful bit of information to have. But yeah, there's a lot of modules out here, and they range in a lot of levels. A lot of these are starters. Elemental Evil is a starter. Tyranny of Dragons is a starter, so Horde of the Dragon Queen, followed by Rise of Tiamat. Prince of the Apocalypse, 1 through 15. Rage of the Demons, 1 through 14. Curse of Strahd, 1 through 10. And that can easily be adjusted to continue along in Barovia very easily. Storm King's Thunder, 1 through 11. Yawning Portal. That one I actually have. That one actually is 1 through 20. If I remember right. Do I have a copy of it here? No, it's in my box. So Tales of the Yawning Portal is one of my favorites just because it has a lot of the elite adventures. It's got Tomb of Horrors. I saw it had Tomb of Horrors. I bought it immediately the instant they announced it. That's how I roll. I love Tomb of Horrors. It's one of my favorite one-offs or two-off games to play. I must have run Tomb of Horrors at least 10 times, and I've only been DMing regularly for the last, say, 7 or 8 years, since 4th edition came out, so maybe a little longer. And I actually had played before when I was a kid. That was 2nd edition with Thaco. I understood Thaco. Thaco never bothered me. I get people saying, oh, Thaco it's the hell of the earth. It's the same thing. You just have to adjust things. It's a little bit of math. Piece of cake. Anyway, where was I? Things useful for DMs. So yeah, definitely, these are great things for starter DMs. As you go on, you'll start to develop your own stories. I've developed a couple of my own. I have a few entire worlds that I've created. I've taken worlds from books, like David Eddings' The Belgariad. I have an entire campaign setting that's based around that, with the maps and everything else there. I actually asked a gal who did a fan map if I could get a copy with none of the titles. Luckily, it was just a layer on her Illustrator file. So she just clicked a button, sent me over a copy. I have that up on my wall, and I gave her a bit of, a little bit of funds because I thought that was a great thing. So yeah, having these as a starter point will sort of show you how the adventure should be played out, what you're looking for. Like I said, that Lost Mines of Phandelver is definitely one of the stronger stories, just because it is designed specifically for new players who have never touched Dungeons and Dragons. You'll notice it's the lowest one, at 1 through 4. I mean, even Horde of the Dragon Queen goes 1 through 7, and then it has the sequel 8 to 15. Most of these will take you to level 10 or above. And Curse of Strahd will absolutely take you above level 10 if you play all of the content. Most people won't bother to play all the content, but there is so much there. That is almost, I think it's a 250-page book for Curse of Strahd, and there's just so many adventures in there. My personal dream, by the way, is to get a 3D printer and make a full-scale model of Castle Ravenloft. I don't know why, it's just my dream. I have paper maps of Ravenloft that I've made, but I would love to get a 3D model of that and just have it stackable. Oh my god, that'd be beautiful. Anyhow, that's one of those things where I don't even own a 3D printer, much less know how to work the software, so we got a ways to go on that. If anyone's making one, you let me know. I'll buy a copy. Let me get back over here. I'm going to bring this screen back up here again. I can pull that down there. So other tools. So you have your dice. You have your DM screen. You have your books. You have modules. The next most important piece of equipment in a Dungeon Master's arsenal is your journal. As far as it goes, if you have a journal that you are keeping for the story, you're going to do fine. And it doesn't have to be anything exciting or excessive. My journal, oh darn it, the one that doesn't show up there. I just have a spiral bound notebook. There we go, sort of like this. It's not that big, but it has all of the adventure notes, and I have it sorted, I have it noted. Some DMs will use spiral notebooks. Absolutely, that's a great idea, because then you can shift the paper around. I mean, there's a lot of different styles that you can use. Your players, at least one of them should have a notebook so that they can keep notes. I usually suggest that's the bard's job. But no, as far as it goes, those are the main things that you're going to be needing. Now, optional things that I highly recommend are, of course, going to be minis. I love playing with minis. They're just so much fun. And the best part about playing with minis is your players can actually see where they are in relation. They can do the math of where they're at. The other option is Theater of the Mind, which I highly recommend for anyone who is playing, which one was it here? The Chaotic Neutral. This is amazing for Theater of the Mind. If you're playing Theater of the Mind, you should be a Chaotic Neutral DM. Just because with that one there, you don't know if you're 60 feet away from that monster when you're casting that spell, so maybe you are now. Congratulations, you teleported 15 feet, you know? Theater of the Mind is very useful for that. And I like that about Dungeons & Dragons, is that it gives you that option there. And Theater of the Mind was the style for the birth of Dungeons & Dragons. I know those of you who watch Stranger Things, that first episode, they're playing Dungeons & Dragons, they have the minis. That was super rare. I didn't get my first mini until probably a year after playing 4th edition. And it wasn't even a mini. I got the little cardboard tokens for the monsters. Oh, wait, no, that was actually part of one of the boxes. Was it had the cardboard tokens, which I still have all of those. I love them. That was the first mini that I ever had, and I didn't get a standing mini until shout out to HeroForge.com until HeroForge established themselves, and I was able to buy my first minis. I'm actually going to pull them up. So yeah, a little bit of free plugging for HeroForge. There we go, HeroForge custom minis, yada yada yada. And I'm gonna have to shrink my screen here because I want you to see everything here. So let's get this here and there and there. Perfect. So yeah, HeroForge is great. I'm gonna go ahead and log in on my side here. So yeah, HeroForge is great. So I have all of my characters here. By the way, Dwarven Subtlety is one of my actual characters. I printed this guy out. This is my main character, who is currently, we're not sure if he's a villain in our group. We'll find out soon. And then I also was making just some little things to put together for some cardboard cutouts I was putting together. Just some, little goblins and whatnots. I wanted to get some things together. Here is our actual villain in our campaign. That's Valis. He is awesome. He's a drow warlock. Love this guy. The goggles are, instead of goggles of see in darkness, these are goggles of see in the light, because he's a drow. He has to see. Yeah, I love that. That was great. We had our one of our characters make that for him when he was a player. But no, it's great. So let me go ahead and create new. Yes, great. It's a great little system here. You can adjust pretty much everything about the character. You can put him on a horse or a motorcycle. Hoorah. Ooh, there we go. Futuristic motorcycle. Perfect. Everyone needs that for D&D. But no, I like HeroForge because they're not confined to Dungeons and Dragons, which I think is really great. You'll notice a lot of their stuff, of course, is going to be Dungeons and Dragons. But then they also have a whole series of outfits that are not Dungeons and Dragons. They've got the Outlaw with the Duster. They've got Pirates, Banditos, Dandy Man. Oh, there we go. The Dandy on the motorcycle. This is my mage, yes. And actually, this is one of the things I like about Dungeons & Dragons. One of the things I like the most. They do this in Dimension 20. Your campaign does not have to be Tolkien. It does not have to be C.S. Lewis. It does not have to be David Eddings. It can be whatever you want it to be. I saw a great post a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if anyone else saw it. It was just one of these things I saw. But it was someone saying that they wanted to play a game of Dungeons & Dragons where they were the DM and they were the only player. They just wanted to play by themselves with no one else bothering them. And one of my friends replied, "I think that's called being an author." I love it. It's true. You make your own stories. So, seriously, just me coming to Hero Forge, clicking a couple of buttons, my head has started creating a world for this guy. A world where magic and science exist simultaneously. In fact, we're going to go ahead and give him some gear. He's got a handheld. Oh, he's got some brass knuckles. Hoorah. Or, let's see here. Let's go to guns. Pistols. There we go. Holy crap, they've got a lot of guns. So yeah, there we go. My little fella here, he's got himself a blaster. Oh yeah. I love this site. It's a great little site to pull up information, get more info for the different styles that are available. So we're going to go ahead and give him some knives. And there we go. Oh, poses, let's see. Oh, there we go. He's rocketing. Now he's turning. He's awesome. But yeah, no, I love this system just because Hero Forge lets you create your own custom mini. And this was actually one of the reasons I never bought minis when I was playing 2nd edition back in the 90s, was I wanted a mini, but I wanted a mini that looked like my character. That was one of the big things. A lot of the times, you know, when you played with minis, you played with a character that almost represented your character. It was kind of close, but it wasn't your character. That's what I love about this system. I mean, even this character here, Gage. This is, by far, this is my main character. 100%. That is my guy. If I am playing D&D with players, I'm almost always playing this guy. It's just who I am. I'm a brute. I'm a giant in real life. I'm a giant in the game. And I like this guy. He's just a lot of fun. So yeah, having minis can really improve your game, but being able to play Theater of the Mind is great as well. I always kind of suggest for the first couple of games, I really do recommend Theater of the Mind. If you're opening up Phandelver for the first time, you're playing with some new players, don't draw any maps. Just go ahead and play the game. Let them know their surroundings. Be detailed, be descriptive. The module has a whole bunch of information that's in there that you can use. But add more onto it. I think I told this story last week, but I'll definitely tell it this week. My first time playing Lost Mines of Phandelver, we get to the main city, which I can't remember its name because it's been a while since I've played. Played that module. And I had read that there was a temple. And so I automatically assumed that there was a cleric there, and of course he could heal their wounds, yada yada. I found out that there wasn't, and it wasn't in the place that I thought it was, so I basically changed the map and changed the structure of the world. But luckily I'm the DM. That's my job. So I went ahead and had this guy there. He was right next to the inn. They could go to him and they could get healed. They could buy potions, whatever they needed to do. He was the guy. Unfortunately, we ended up renaming him from Wheatley to Wheaton. Because, man, did that guy like to roll ones on healing checks. So, yeah. He was an idiot. He was an idiot healer. He basically was sent to this mining village for a reason. And it was great. You know, my players loved this character. They had a lot of fun. And I ended up having a lot of fun playing him, too. Let's go ahead and stop promoting Hero Forge for a second there. Go back to my logo. So it was a lot of fun with this character because we had, you know, he kept on rolling so badly on all of his healing checks, which he had a +6 to, and he still couldn't get above a 10. So my players basically decided to start just making fun of him constantly. throughout the game. It was basically everything was, well, we better take it to Wheaton. Uh-oh, you have a paper cut. Let's go to Wheaton. He'll probably, slice your guts open to get you healed. It was just, it was so great. The main line from that one was, the red stuff goes on the inside, right? I love that. It was a lot of fun. So we had situations like that, and it was a good situation to have. So yeah, let's go ahead and recap one last time. And I'm going to go ahead and type this out just so you have the list you can see. So, useful items for a Dungeon Master. So number one, we're going to go with the easy one here. We need dice. I have played Dungeons & Dragons without Player's Handbook, without anything else. I just had dice. Actually, that's not true. I didn't have dice. What I had was a wool cap and shreds of paper. That was it. This is when I was in the Army. Basic training, some friends of mine wanted to play D&D. I had, of course, played 2nd edition. I DM'd a couple of times. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll do it, sure. They're like, okay, cool. Do you have any books? No, I don't have any books. Do you have any dice? No, dice aren't allowed. We'll get kicked out of the Army. And actually, we'll get in trouble. We'll get a fine or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And they're like, well, how the heck are we going to play? I'm like, we could just make up the numbers. If you tell me a good story, I'll let it happen. And they're like, well, I kind of want to have dice. I'm like, okay. So I grab a piece of paper, shred it into 20 pieces, write 1 through 20 on them, throw them in my hat, and say, okay, now we have dice. They loved it. It was great. So we all had dice, and a lot of it was very much that theater of the mind where the dice would, or the strips of paper, the dice, whatever, they would control the story, but they didn't control the story. Not even a little bit. It was so much fun. We had a scene where 3 people sailed a galleon ship through a maelstrom, sort of like that scene in, I think it was the 3rd Pirates of the Caribbean movie where they're fighting in the maelstrom. It was basically that. But I did it back in the year 2000, or 2001. So there you go. How about them apples? Next thing, of course, you want to have are the books. If you have dice and you don't have books, the books are going to be useful. They're going to show you the rules. Like I said, there's 2 sets of rules. The rules that are in the books and the rules that the DM decides are true. The books are super useful. I love having rule Nazis at my table. Because they're going, or rule lawyers, excuse me. So they're going to be the ones that keep you honest. They're going to be the ones that hopefully keep themselves honest. They know the rules. I like having them. A lot of times they're DMs themselves, or they're people who wish they could be DMs, but they don't have the ability to do the improv. It's useful to have. So I definitely recommend the books. Like I said, your focus isn't really on how to create a character, it's on how to play the characters. That's your focus, because you're the DM. You are maintaining the play of the game. Excuse me, I didn't mean to go Shatner. I had a hiccup there. So you're maintaining the play of the game, and having those rules in mind is always a good thing. Following spells is also very useful to have. So the next thing that we said that we want to have on their, oh crap, I can't even remember, Dungeon Master screen. This gives you the privacy to roll the dice and consult your books. My monster manual is usually right up against the middle of that DM screen. I don't want my characters knowing that they're fighting, this demon or whatever, because if they're anything like me, they know its weaknesses. I feel bad for my DM threw up a mind flayer and everyone's freaking the hell out. I'm like, oh, he's only got 60 hit points. I'll just murder him. And I did. I didn't give the DM chance to even play the mind flayer. I just chucked a couple of sticks of dynamite at him and shot him with an arrow, and that was it. He was dead. I felt bad for my DM actually, but I knew that I was fighting something that was incredibly weak, and I had initiative before it, killed it in the first round. I felt bad, but I knew that if I didn't kill it, we were all completely fucked. So I had to kill it. Next up, I would say the most important thing is going to be your modules. And like I said, Lost Mines of Phandelver is a great resource. You can pick it up at Target, buy it on Amazon, buy it in your game shop. I highly recommend buying it in the game shop over Target or Amazon just because support your local community. Absolutely. I buy all of my dice, all of my books, everything at my local game shop, which actually isn't a game shop. It's a... So when Blockbuster went out of business, a guy bought up the store and all of their inventory and kept selling DVDs, renting DVDs and selling them, and he just expanded. So he now also owns a comic book store next door that's connected to the video store. It's awesome. I love going there. And they have, their little dice collection out there. They've got the DM stuff. They've got the player handbooks, all the little spell cards. It's a great system. I like it. So yeah, support your local community. They sometimes will charge a little bit extra, but that's okay. It doesn't cost a lot. It will go from being a $20 book to being a $24 book. Give them the money. They need it. Of course, you need players. I'm not going to list that on here. If you're being a DM, you have players. I'm going to assume. And actually, on that one there, if you don't have players, there's a lot of really easy ways to do it. When I moved to Phoenix, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't have a group. I wanted a group. Asked my wife if it was okay. She said, yeah, go ahead and get a group together. So I put an ad on Craigslist. D&D 5th edition party looking for players. DM, no players. Give me a call. I had 5 calls within the end of the week, and I had 4 players the next week when we started. Session 0 was great. We introduced each other. I ordered some pizza. We got drunk a little bit. It was good. We had fun. And I made lasting friends. Patrick and Xana, very good friends of mine from that group. And yeah, we're very good friends there. It's nice to have that. Even though we now live, 40 miles away or so, we still chat. They're still Facebook friends. We went to their place a while ago. They come over to our place every once in a while to play board games. It's good. So yeah, Craig, you know what? I'm actually going to put it in here. So you need players. And actually, we're going to move that up the list. So there, you need players. Resources are Craigslist, Meetup, and Facebook. Facebook is good. I'm not saying to ask your friends. I'm saying to join a group. I am in a bunch of Dungeons & Dragons groups, and every once in a while someone will put up a post saying, hey, where's everyone from? And you post your state, and then you post your city in the comments, and then you look for your state if it's already there. That way everyone who's in a certain area will know, hey, you live a half a mile from me. We should play Dungeons & Dragons. Heck yeah, absolutely. Big fan of those. So, next up, what a Dungeons & Dragons DM needs physically. We're going to go over the mental stuff in a second here. So you have dice, you have your books, DM screen, module. I'm going to go ahead and say a fixed place to play. And that's really useful to have. When I was playing 2nd edition, we rented out a room at the library, which was free. It was great. We had this whole room to ourselves. We'd go up there and we would play our Dungeons & Dragons. And it was funny because a lot of the times we'd rent the room for we'd rent it every afternoon or every once a week, every afternoon for months out. And one time we found out that the city council was trying to get our spot. And so we showed up and we're in there playing and city council comes in and we're like, hey, we have this room reserved. We have it reserved every day or every Friday at this time. And we're here until 9 o'clock. So you'll have to go elsewhere. And so us, a bunch of middle school kids, it was me, Sarah, Jeannie, there was 5, there might have been 5 of us. Bunch of kids playing Dungeons & Dragons kicked out city council out of the library for their meeting. And they went to a much smaller room, which is where we should have gone. We actually ended up moving to that room because the library did absolutely throw a fit about that. So we ended up moving over to that room from then on, which we were totally cool with. Like I said, there were only 5 or 6 of us. It wasn't a big deal. But having a fixed place to play is very important because you'll need to have that regularity. We meet. My group meets at my house. I have my garage. I have my table. There's no reason not to. Plus, I have 5 kids, So my wife really wants me to play at home because if things happen, I don't want to have to drive to get to her. She likes me. She doesn't want to miss me, etc. So those are the things that are going to be useful for a DM to have. Now, mentally, I think one of the most important things a DM needs to have is the ability to improvise. I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about Brennan and Dimension 20. You've got the guys who do Critical Role. There's a whole bunch of podcasts of D&D groups out there, and I love those things. They're great little stories. Dimension 20 is definitely my favorite, by the way. It's only on Dropout. Actually, I think they're putting episodes on YouTube now also, so do a check. Dimension 20, Fantasy High. If you're not already watching it, watch it. It is amazing. I love the characters. They're so good. But Brennan actually did a podcast of his own a while ago talking about similar things, how to be a good DM. And one of the things that they went over was being able to improvise. So being able to have a situation happen where you weren't expecting it to happen and knowing what to go on. And actually, he went over his first module that he ever went over, where he had this whole situation set up. And they went to a dwarven city, and the girl wasn't wanting to marry the guy, but it was for political reasons, for political purposes. 5 points if you know what that's from. Anyway, and they rolled insight checks on the girl, on the dwarf, and they realized she didn't want to marry this guy. And so instead of the scene where, the bad wizard comes in and captures the dwarven girl, now they have to follow him, they capture the dwarven girl and rescue her and take her away before the guy even gets there. And they had this huge story, basically, like 95% of it is just gone. You're done. It's gone. Your players have done something. And never tell your players no. Always say yes. That is by far one of the best things. It's one of those things from improv that I love, is always say yes. If your character says, I want to get drunk and slap the queen's ass, let's do this thing. You're about to realize there are consequences to your actions. And I love that about D&D. It's great. The next thing they were talking about was developing interesting character hooks. And I recommend listening to the podcast because they'll go into more detail on this. But they gave me a hook that I'm going to use on my next new group. The hook was that they had a bunch of characters out there, and he waited until he saw which one the characters formed a relationship with. And each of these characters were criminals in one way or another. And I liked that about that. So what happened was, they finally get the call, oh, we need you to go and fight the goblins in the cave. Cool, yeah. The party goes out, they fight the goblins in the cave, they come back to town 2 days later, and they find out that the woman that they had been interacting with, the witch woman, had been killed by the town guards for being a witch. And it got the entire party to realize that while they leave, things still happen. It's not like The Legend of Zelda where you leave the cave and that you come back, 5 days later, that guy's standing in the exact same place telling you that it's a secret to everybody. Neat. You see that a lot in video games where the villages don't evolve, they don't progress while you're gone. There's a few games that do that. I hear that Skyrim does that, a few other games. But for the most part, if you leave an area, nothing happens. I know actually Richard Garriott had talked about this with Ultima. He wanted to have his cities evolve, but the logistics were just insane, so he didn't. I would have loved it. That would have been a really fun thing with Ultima if the city had evolved, but that's okay. Probably more of a sprawling cityscape than it is now. Oh, Lord. So that's a great thing, is sort of develop custom hooks. The next one I would say is you want to meet up with your players, get their background, get their hopes and dreams, find out what they want out of that character. Everyone has a purpose for their character. The character that Dwarven Subtlety is named after, Templeton Stouthammer. He's sort of like nobility in the dwarves, but not really. He's a brewmaster, you see, and he's one of the heads of his clan. He's a lot of fun. I love Templeton. The shield you see there in the picture there, that's from his purple worm kill. Pulled a scale off and carried it from the Underdark up to his civilization, and my DM just told me that was a big mistake, so I'm enjoying that. That's going to be fun. But his whole purpose was he wanted to sell booze. He wanted to spread the name of Stouthammer. So everywhere he went, he was selling booze. And my character always had money. I loved it. He was also always really drunk. If he didn't have at least 3 beers in him by 8 in the morning, he probably wasn't going to be able to function that day. Some of us would call that an alcoholic. For a dwarf, that's called Tuesday. So that was Templeton's thing. And then my new character that I have here, Joran, is the son of Gage, the guy that I showed you before here. It's his son. And he doesn't know about it. So Gage is a mage slayer, is his whole thing. His order, the Order of the Silver Shield, or Silver Hand, Silver Flame. Order of the Silver Flame. I haven't played them in a while, sorry. Their whole thing is they're chaotic mage hunters. If you're a mage, you're casting spells to fight monsters, etc. Awesome. I have no beef with you. But if you're a mage and you're casting spells that go against the course of nature, we got a problem. Necromancers are a big deal with him. So that's his whole thing. His whole shtick is that. And when he was young, he met a beautiful elven woman, and humans being what humans are, he fucks everything. So they had some lovely sex there, and they had Joran. I don't have any pictures of Joran just because he's so new, but Joran is fun. You might notice I have a kind of a nice voice there. I do audiobook recordings, and one of the books I recorded was called Villains by Necessity. And I love that book. If you get a chance, read that book by Eve Forward, Villains by Necessity. It is so good. The audiobook narration's pretty good. I could have done better, but I didn't have the time. Anyway, I felt bad about that. Anyhow, back onto this. So the character that I made, Joran, he's similar to one of the characters in the book, Robin of Avonsdale, who Robin's a centaur, and he's a half-elf. But they have a very similar kind of story where they're very naive. They don't know much about the world around them. They only know their world. So Joran, if he's in the forest, he is at home. It doesn't matter what forest it is. If there are trees and wild animals, he is happy. So that's the great thing about Joran. I like that about him. But then, he's stalking these people, and he's living off the land while he's stalking them. He joins the party. And I went ahead and let Templeton go back to the mines because he has to, call the guild to action because of the tyrant woman that's coming, etc. I love the story that we're doing on our group. I'm a player, by the way, in my group. I'm not the DM, but we'll see. I like playing. It's fun. I get a hard time playing one character, though. This is my this is my 4th character, because our current villain, Valis, is one of the characters I played. That's a good story. Anyway, what was going on with the story with this, I'm sorry, I really rambled just then, was I wanted to get the backstories. So Gage's backstory of his thing that he wants, his goal, was he was just a hunter of mages. He wanted to find all of the chaotic mages and either subdue or kill them. That was his thing. Templeton, he wanted to spread the name of Stouthammer through the world. So he was traveling in his cart with his booze, selling it. That's actually one of the reasons I kind of retired him, was that wasn't happening anymore. And I kind of felt weird about it. I like having calm games, but my DM likes epic campaigns, which I'm cool with. Absolutely. I have no problem with that. So I went ahead and made Joran, and it was great. I was just sort of toying ideas around. I'm like, well, what if Gage banged an elf and they have a kid and this happened? So I made a character. And then I sent the character sheet to my DM, just sort of saying, hey, this is a character I'm thinking of making. What do you think? And he pulls it up, and he's looking. He's like, oh, that's a cool character. I'm like, what do you think of the name? Joran and Dahl. And, of course, Gage and Dahl. And he's like, wait a second, are they brothers? I'm like, no, they're not brothers. Is that his son? It is his son. And he's like, I need a background on this character right freaking now. So I wrote out a background, a little 3-page thing about his upbringing and where he's going. I gave him my goals and stuff, and his goal is to meet his father. Specifically not to join his father also, because my characters keep turning into the damn villains. I don't know how we're going to kill Templeton. Anyway, so we're having a lot of fun with this, and my DM was actually saying that he's going to have a setup where I'm going to play Templeton one more time, and he's rolling a character for Templeton's little brother, who is jealous of Templeton. And I guess his little brother got the rest of the purple worm scales and has made a suit of armor out of it, which means he's got like a 28 armor class, so he's going to be a lot of fun to kill. You know what really gets around armor class? Fire. And Templeton likes explosives, so boom, boom, baby. We're going to take care of this real fast. Knowing how your characters want to play their character is important. Like I said, your campaigns that you have are a great idea, but don't railroad your characters. Actually, ask them if they want to be railroaded. That some people do. Knowing that there's a story to progress is great. Knowing which way to go is wonderful. It actually kind of annoys me with my current DM, and I'm sorry if you hear this, Christopher Robert, but it is one of the things that annoys me the most. He'll give us 3 options of where to go. He knows where he wants us to go, but he won't tell us. I kind of want to be railroaded at times. I want to see where the story progresses. I want to know. You get the same thing with the Return to Castle Ravenloft, or whatever it is, the adventure with Barovia in 5th edition. It's a huge book, and there are so many places to go. I've run it twice, and I haven't been to half of the places yet. And it kind of bothers me, just because I really would love to go to some of these places. They seem really amazing, really interesting, but I've gone to the Windmill twice. I've gone to all of the cities 12 times over. I've gone to the Werewolf Caverns twice, and we went to one other place one time each, because they tell you basically where you're going in the Taroka reading. Oh, I must have a text message. But anyway, yeah, it's a great system to have, and I really think it's important for DMs to sort of know that, because it will help you with our original topic here, which is how DMs cheat, fudging your numbers. So knowing that, this character here is on a search for his father, and he wants to free the world from the tyranny that his father is creating, going out in the world and fighting against the tyranny without fighting the father directly is fine. Absolutely. Exploring the world around him, it's a good system. Selling the beer, being the merchant who sells magical items, all these things are great character hooks, personal character hooks. Again, if you watch Dimension 20, you see them working to fulfill these things. And they actually talk about this in the podcast that I was talking about with Brennan that he did. There is a great part in there where one of the characters, Riz, who is a goblin, I think he's actually a thief, but he plays him as an investigator. He is going out and he is searching for his lost babysitter. Cool. The entire story has been built around that lost babysitter, and I don't think it was on purpose. I think that that Brennan actually evolved the story as they went along. He had a general idea of this is what we're going to do, but that wasn't the story at the beginning. It was something completely different, and it became this massive, amazing thing. And it was just really well put together. I was very happy with the entire system, and it worked out so well. And that's an important thing to know. Sort of listen to your players, see what they want to do, and adjust the story to that. Even if you're running a module, it's very easy to do. Templeton would be absolutely at home in that mining village. And that was part of his story, was that he would go out and he would fight roaming bands of marauders between trips. So he's taking his cargo to there. He gets attacked by the goblins. He goes and he fights the goblins in the cave, finds the guy hurt, takes the guy back to the village where he was going anyways, sets up shop, sells his booze, heals the guy, finds out the whole story, goes on these other adventures over here, over there, fights everything, kills everything, gets the final story, and he wins. It's awesome. And by the way, I know I mentioned that the Lost Mines of Phandelver was designed for levels 1 through 5, I think it was. I've taken characters up to level 7 through Lost Mines of Phandelver, and it depends on your style as a DM also. If you are going to level your characters up based on the story, I highly like that. It keeps your characters at the same level, keeps everything kind of even. If you're doing it by experience, you've got to keep track of how much experience your players are earning. It's a trick. So either way works perfectly fine. The other nice thing with leveling up based on where you are in the story is players who are sick, can't make it for one reason or another, they're still able to enjoy themselves because they're leveling up with you. But anyway, I think that pretty much wraps it there. So, non-tangibles, we're going to go with improvisation, knowledge of players' backstories. It's going to bug me. So this is sort of improvisation, but we're going to keep it on here. Ability to adjust the story as it develops. So improvisation is the players walk up to a character that you don't know who it is, and you describe who they are and what they're saying. Adjusting the story as it develops is going to tie in strongly with number 2 as well, making sure that your characters are having fun and fulfilling their goals. So these work well in this order, I think. You don't have to be a storyteller, you don't have to be an author, you don't have to be any of these things to be able to be a good DM. You just have to listen to your players. That really is the biggest part there. And as a player, it's your job to be able to tell your DM what you want to do. I think that's actually all we have here for this week. Here, I'm going to go ahead and bring this back down here. And I didn't sign out with our logo last time here. So, yeah, that's all the time that I have for today. Join me in 2 weeks when we're going to go over... I don't really have a topic for in a couple weeks here. Let's go ahead and make one up. Let's focus on players. Let's see. So last time we focused on how to create a character. So how about this next time we continue with the story that we had here. How to develop a story for your characters. What we're going to go over next week or in a couple weeks. So yeah, in a couple of weeks we're going to go over how to develop a player's character past the character sheet. I think that'd be a really good topic to have there. And I went over it a little bit today. I think that we can sort of delve into that and get a little bit deeper. I'll go ahead and take the barbarian that we made a couple of weeks ago. I know I kind of played with him a little bit to see what I would make out of him, but I think we'll sort of continue with that a little bit. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun there. So as always, thank you for listening to Dwarven Subtlety. Stay subtle, my lad.